Is there a God? There are many perspectives that a person can have on this subject, degrees of certainty. In the middle, there's the person who says maybe. I think just outside of maybe is hope. Some people hope so. I think most hope so. But there may be those who hope not. There are others who don't think so or don't believe so, while on the flip side, there are some who believe or think that there is a God. Some people feel nearly certain that there is, or nearly certain that there is not, while others are totally certain that there is, or totally certain that there is not. And then you'll find a portion of the population that seems to claim that they know that there is not, or claims to know that there is. I want to evaluate each of these claims. Maybe. I think this is the safest of all claims. This is not to take any side. There might be, there might not be. Truly an agnostic. Now, to say I hope so seems reasonable. Most of us would love to have the idea of living forever. Those who say I hope not, it seems a little weird. But is it really weird? I think it depends on the way you believed. What was your view of God? Did you believe that God was merciful, or did you believe that God was harshly judgmental? Did you believe that God would forgive you of your sins, or that he would throw you into a hell to burn forever? If you're the latter, it might be very reasonable for you to hope that there is no God, to avoid eternal punishment. How did you live your religion? Were you living your religion in such a way that it made you miserable? Perhaps so much so that leaving your religion was something that enhanced the quality of your life? If any of these things were the case, then hoping not might not seem that weird. Then there are those who believe or think that there is, or those who believe and think that there isn't. Now, this is merely a statement of the person's opinion. I think that there is. I don't think that there is. And behind that, there is an acceptance or a rejection of witnesses. Let's look at this. Which one of these is logical? I would argue that both are logical. You can go through and create arguments for both sides that are totally reasonable. What about which belief has people who can verify its correctness based on first-hand personal experiences? Well, obviously, such a thing is impossible for not believing so, because that would be based on the absence of personal first-hand experience. What about which belief has any evidence to support its claims? Well, again, to not believe in God is the absence of evidence, not the presence of evidence. So again, that is impossible. However, to believe or think so is a position that is potentially one that has the ability to have evidence to support its claims. Now, some people may take the side and say, well, if I can poke holes in the evidence that people use to believe or think there is a God, that is actually supporting the belief or thought process that there is not a God, and they consider that evidence that there is no God. However, that's actually not evidence that there is no God. That's merely trying to weaken the evidence that there is a God. So again, that's not actually giving any evidence for not believing in God. Which belief is more popular or more common? Now, this isn't something that I recommend someone basing their beliefs off of, but it is something to look at that's interesting. So if there's 7.4 billion people that live on Earth, based on what I looked up, 5.6 to 6.3 billion of these people are religious. They believe in God. They believe in a spirit. while 1.1 to 1.8 of these billion people are atheists. They do not believe in God and do not believe in a spirit. So that's to say that about 6 billion people, or about approximately 80% of the world's population, is religious or does believe in God or the spirit. So in this hand, again, believing or thinking so carries a bit more weight. Now what about this next position, to say I am nearly positive that there is, or I am nearly positive or nearly certain that there is not? To say I am nearly positive that there is not, you need to evaluate what it is that you're actually being positive about. This is to say that everyone who has claimed to have had personal experiences, which the person obviously has not had, is either insane or a liar. Now, insanity is a broad definition, and so it could fit somewhere in that spectrum, probably based on the extent of the person's experiences that they're claiming. But to say that you're nearly positive that they're not is to say that you're nearly positive that everyone who has ever had a witness of God, a personal experience that they share, is to some degree insane or a liar. And for those that don't claim to have had personal experiences but believe in the experiences of others, is to say that everyone who believes in personal experiences which this person has never had is either more closed-minded, less intelligent, or less educated than the person who does not believe. These are steep claims, and of course the opposite is true in the other side. But I think it's good to be aware of what exactly you're positive about. Now on the flip side, does it involve calling people insane or liars? Well, no. To say that you're certain that there is, or that you're nearly certain rather, you can say I am nearly positive because of first-hand experience, or because I believe in the account, witness, or testimony of people who have given first-hand personal experiences or accounts of those experiences. It's a bit of a different perspective to have. One is to discount people as insane or liars, and the other one is to believe that they're not. Now, this next one, to say I am totally certain that there is not, or I am totally certain that there is really, it's another way of saying I am totally certain that there is not. It's like saying I guess another way of putting this is, really, this is impossible. How can a person be totally certain? Really, all they're saying is, I am totally closed-minded. And what are they closed-minded about? They're totally closed-minded solely based on the absence of their own personal experience and or the total denial of others' personal experiences, as if they could somehow know whether or not people actually had personal experiences, or know that these people's personal experiences were illegitimate because of insanity or because of dishonesty, which is something that I don't see how you could be totally certain of that, unless you have some sort of godlike powers, which would kind of break the whole argument in the first place. But what about being totally certain that there is? Is this a possible viewpoint? I put one in orange and I put the other in green for a reason, because this is possible. Now, it could be, on the first hand, the same circumstance, just on the flip side. The person could be totally closed-minded. They could, all right, I've heard a witness, and I am absolutely certain that there is no way whatsoever that this person's witness that they gave is false. I know that everything this person said is true, and I'm totally closed-minded to anyone who's presenting any information on the flip side. That is absolutely a possibility. And I think it's equally closed-minded on one side as it is on the other, and I've met people in both circumstances. It's totally based on believing someone else's testimony. However, on this side, unlike those that do not believe, a person can be totally certain because of personal experience. And then this last position, to say I know that there is, or I know that there is not. This is based on knowledge. And I raise the question, is there a difference? is it possible to know that there is not? And on the flip hand, is it possible to know that there is? I'll answer this for you. You cannot know something like this based on the absence of first-hand experience. It is impossible. So anyone who claims to know that there is no God is, in my opinion, totally illogical, because such a thing is impossible. However, on the flip side, it is possible for someone to have first-hand experience, if it's correct. So such a thing is possible. A person can know it. And there are people who claim to have attained this. So from that perspective, it is not only is it possible, but it has been attained. Big difference on either side. One position has the potential to be proved, and the other position is impossible to prove. One position is impossible to disprove, and the other position is impossible to prove. One position is possible to prove. That right there is huge. Impossible to prove versus impossible to disprove and possible to prove. So, unless you are totally illogical, you can't know that there is no God. Unless you are totally closed-minded, you can't be totally sure either. You can certainly believe or think that there is not a God. But please recognize that this belief is based solely off of the absence of personal experience. And this absence of personal experience and their denial of it is in direct contradiction to the presence of personal experience, which many, many, many people claim. This is followed by denying the many witnesses which have been given of God. It is to say that all of these people are either insane or liars. And you have to consider the motive there if they're a liar. Looking at these people's lives, if you've ever looked at a person's life and why they would lie about this sort of thing. And that not even one of them told the truth or had any truth in what they said. So it comes down to belief. You choose to believe or you choose not to believe. In this case, you choose not to believe. You have no proof. You have no witnesses. You have no personal experience. You have the absence of these things. And furthermore, you have the denial of the witnesses of others. You do this by calling them insane or by calling them liars, and by calling everyone who believes in them as believing in the foolish superstitions of their fathers. And by that they mean denying the first-hand witnesses of their fathers. Atheists often accuse theists of believing only out of fear. Fear of death motivates them to believe, they say. I argue that I fear death less than the atheist. And this is why. Yes, I am perfectly aware of the possibility that death may be the end. That possibility is always there. It's there for both of us. However, if I die, and it turns out that all of the witnesses of my forefathers were lies or insanity, I lived a fantastic life. On the other hand, if I die and it turns out that the many, many witnesses of my forefathers and the millions of other people out there were true, still, I lived a fantastic life. If the way you were living your religion resulted in living anything short of an absolutely fantastic life, then you and I did not approach our beliefs in the same way. And I'd like to end on that thought. I hope this was helpful for those who listened.